Welcome back to the Cordial Corner. Today's recipe is going to be a guest favorite and a southern staple, homemade buttermilk biscuits. Stay tuned, it's a treat you're going to want to learn. Alright y'all, so you're going to want to grab a tablespoon of baking powder, a tablespoon of sugar, and a tablespoon of salt. I prefer Himalayan salt, so it's more fine and that's good when it comes to biscuits. And these are going to be added to 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You're also going to grab a half a stick of cold butter. Make sure it's cold because you're going to end up grating it into the flour mixture. So I strongly recommend that y'all grab gloves if you have any. As you can see, I have on gloves with this recipe because it can get a little messy. I know old school style, they use their hands. I don't know if all of you have relatives from the South or know someone from the South, but my grandmother who showed me how to do this, she makes it with her hands. And she also has used like a utensil to stir it too, actually, but I know a lot of people, they make it with their hands. I'm not gonna make my hands messy because it can get messy, which you will see later. But as you can see, we're gonna go ahead and grate the flour into the mixture and evenly distribute the flour. You can pinch it with your hands, which is another reason why I encourage you to use gloves. Get a few pairs of gloves on hand, and you're going to pinch it so that the flour is evenly distributed, because the objective is to make the mixture into a nice dough. So you want to evenly distribute the butter. And what y'all are also going to see in just a second, as I'm grating with my hand, as I'm mixing with my hands, I end up realizing that the mixture is not coming out quite right. So I end up grabbing the pastry cutter to see, what's going on, and keep going, and then finally I realized what I did incorrectly. You're supposed to add shortening to this recipe also, well, to any biscuit recipe. So I ended up grabbing the shortening. You can add about, I'd say like a 1/4 cup of shortening to this and add it and chop it or pastry cut it in, fold it, at the correct term is folding in, fold it in and add it to the recipe. And that, as you can see, it's finally starting to do what it's supposed to and really create the texture that is necessary to make the dough. Now, of course, I'm going to include the recipe down below, but I must be transparent with you all. My grandmother taught me another thing that I love about elderly people, especially from her generation. They tend to not measure when they cook. And for those of us younger people, like I know my cousin, she and I were talking about making my mom's biscuits, and she was like, yeah, but she didn't teach me any measurements. So how'd you learn? I said, girl, I had to figure it out. I had to go online and look at other people's and then make my own from that. So I'm going to write what I did below, but from what I eyeballed, I'm 90% certain that it's a 1/4 cup of shortening. So I apologize in advance for that, but the good part is if it's not enough, y'all can add more to it. And this recipe is actually going to make about, let's say, 8 biscuits for like average size biscuits. So feel free to modify it and adjust it according to your needs. Now, one of the most important things you see me doing is making a big area for a well. And you're going to add 3/4 or even, I would say about 3/4 to a cup of milk. Buttermilk is the best option because, buttermilk biscuits, but some people make it with regular milk and it comes out just as tasty. So you're going to do that. And as you can see, I'm mixing the ingredients with my hand and it's becoming a little messy. And I'll be honest with y'all too, I was being a little kid. I was enjoying myself playing around. So I wasn't quite being focused on actually folding in the ingredients together as I should have. So forgive me for that. But what you're about to see now is me fold them in and mix the ingredients in a circle, or spin the bowl in a circular motion so that the ingredients can be folded in together and come together to make the nice dough ball that you need to proceed with the recipe. So just continue to watch and you'll see that once the ingredients begin to blend, it makes it easier for the biscuit ball or the dough ball to form. Also, I think it's important to note that if the ingredients are not folding together and not starting to become more and more blended, then you've either put not enough milk or not enough flour. The beautiful thing about this also is you can add bits and pieces in if need be. So I strongly encourage you to keep extra flour and milk handy. Some people I know have actually put in extra butter. I wouldn't encourage you to do that too much because it can mess up the texture and you want them nice and flaky. But as we can see, this particular recipe hit the nail on the head, and it's almost perfect when it comes to the consistency that we need to make the biscuits. Something else I want to add is if you're making biscuits with contents other than what we have here, such as onion, bacon, or bacon pieces, or even cheese, when you add those ingredients in, be sure to do so before you get to this point. Now, be advised that it will take a little bit longer to get to this point when you add those more dense items, but it's easier if you go ahead and do that sooner than later. So once you have your biscuit dough formed in a ball, you're going to grab like a pizza dish or something comparable and add your dough to that and make it flat. Now you can choose to use a rolling pin to flatten the dough to make it even, but again, I'm choosing to use my hands because I do want to have a little height to the biscuits to help them be a little more fluffy. And when you're doing that, you're just going to go ahead and make it nice and thick. You're going to grab your biscuit cutter. Some people, they use biscuit cutters. Some people they've used a canning lid, or like a leftover ring from a canning lid. If you know what that if you know what that is, some people don't know what that is, but if you know what that is, you can, if you have some extra canning lids around and you want to take a clean ring, use that. And then you can also use a nice cup or a nice glass. So there's so many options you have when it comes to actually cutting the dough into the round pieces, but you do want to use something that's round. You don't want to just, some people, like I know some people freehand it and they just roll them into a ball and then flatten them with their hands, but the presentation's nice. So I think it's better to do it the way I'm doing it, so they all come out the same size. Or even if you don't have a biscuit cutter, at least use something that can get them, or most of them, to the same size. Because what you see here also is that last little bit of dough, we're going to have to use our hands for to make it nice and thick. And I tried to shape it a little bit, but as you can see, it's still kind of not going to be the same as the others, which is fine, but it's close enough. So that's the one you would like to put in the middle. And you see they came out to be comparable in size. So to a pan, you're going to add some kind of butter. Some people put regular butter. I use butter spread because it's easier. So you're going to add that so that the biscuits do not stick to the pan and they have a nice bottom to them. And you're going to put the biscuits in one by one. And for this, I'm using a smaller pan because the serving won't be that large. And then finally, once you've gone ahead and put them into the pan, you're going to add either milk, egg wash. Some people even use mayonnaise and sour cream or something. Use some kind of dairy product. My preference, as you can see, is the buttermilk. To place that on the top gently onto the biscuits, because it's going to help add a nice golden brown touch to them, and it helps them to retain the moisture. So you're going to bake them for about 20-25 minutes on 325, and after 5 minutes they'll begin to rise. And they'll come out pretty golden like this. Just keep an eye on them. So I hope you enjoy this recipe. Feel free to share any comments down below, and thanks for watching.